Happy St. Patrick's Day. I promise I'm wearing green. This is green, right? Green under this. If not, I can always say my eyes are green. So no pinching for Deb. But we are just about a week out from the 2023 Modern Mortgage and Real Estate Summit. And I had the opportunity to help my twin sister, Denise Donoghue, the mortgage nerd, with her presentation. Hers was my favorite. I'm just going to go ahead and admit it. One, I think she does such a great job with articulating and presenting because it feels like you're there with her and she's not like speaking down to you or at you. Not that the other ones did that, but it was such a relevant and timely segment that a lot of people aren't talking about. So her title was called What the Shift. And she wasn't talking about the shift that most of us keep hearing over and over and over. Like we know the market has shifted. We know that interest rates have shifted. We know that inventory is as low, not as it's ever been, but it's tight out there. And so although we may be getting more purchase applications, we're still running into the same issue that there's just no supply. And so what I loved about her approach is she talked about something that is kind of in the blind spots of a lot of people. So I'm going to share my screen and show y'all a presentation that I put together. And this is, guys, this is a rough draft of the presentation. If any of you would like copies of these slides, just send us an email and we will give you copies. But I'm going to dive into it. It says, what the shift. And this is what we're talking about. In case you're wondering, what are the ages of all these demographics? Well, starting with the silent generation, that's anyone who's in the ages of 78 to 98. Probably not a whole lot of people buying or selling at this age. But then we go to the older boomers, which older is anyone who is 69 to 77. Then we have the younger boomers, which is 59 to 68. Gen X, which was the second largest demographic in 2021 who bought homes. And those were from the age ranges of 44 to 58. The older millennials, which millennials, in case you guys didn't know, is also Gen Y. So we have Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, but another name for Gen Y is millennials. The older millennials are 34 to 43 this year. The younger millennials are anywhere from 25 to 33. This was the largest first-time homebuyer segment in 2021. That, according to the 2022 NAR Home Buying and Selling Report, which always comes out in March. So I have a feeling by the end of this month, we will get last year's updated numbers. And then Gen Z. So Gen Z is technically anyone from 20 to 24. Just kind of keep that in perspective when looking at this. What we're seeing is a trend with Gen Z and millennials. Like we know that this is the largest demographic. This is the demographic shift. So when Denise was talking about what the shift, what she was talking about is the demographic shift. And how well do we understand the psychological components of how these demographics like to consume? I thought this was interesting. This is the first time homebuyer wave. You can see that there's a peak here with the younger millennials. Just from a whole, the millennials were the kids from the baby boomers. So before it used to be the baby boomers, as far as numbers go, was the largest demographic, who has now been replaced by the second boom, or the millennials. So there's 85 million people all in the millennial demographic, and there's about 60 million in the Gen Z. So we have a lot in this age group that are most likely going to be our buyers for the next couple of years. So when we're thinking about social media and we're thinking about content and who our target audience is, we need to be aware of the demographics, who are the ones most likely going to be buying, and then how are we shifting our mortgage practice and reducing the friction points based off how these demographics like to consume. Because you'll see later in this report how brand loyalty and brand lock-in is much harder, especially with Gen Zs, when they have very little tolerance for lack of digital products or services. Let me go to the next slide. This is the millennial home purchase application since 2016. You can see here's 2015. There was only 35% for the millennials. The light blue, this is millennial. Compared to 2022, we had 54% with the millennial population, which again, shouldn't be, when we look at context, we have to remember there's the most amount of human bodies in the millennial demographic alone. But still, this is just all the more reason if we see how much the purchase applications have increased just since 2016. I mean, my goodness, if you haven't started to shift your mortgage practice to accommodate these people, then this goes back to the whole evolve or die, right? Okay, so now let's look at the share of buyers. And again, this These graphs were from the NAR 2022 Home Buying and Selling Report. This data is most likely on 2021. Again, as soon as the updated report comes out, which I would expect by the end of this month, these numbers may change a little bit. But you can see the older millennials made up the largest population of buyers. The second largest, so the buyers are in the dark blue and the sellers are in the light blue. So we're just going to look at the dark blue since that's what we care about, right? The second largest was the Gen X. Ironically, the Gen X carried the higher amount of median income, although the millennials were the most educated. What does that mean? They also carry the most amount of student loan debt, which hindsight's always perfect vision. The Gen Zers are starting to look at the millennials, and we're starting to see trends that they're questioning, is the traditional form of education still the best way to go when there's a lot of millennials and Gen Zs who aren't even in the job that their degree would support. I thought this was interesting when you just look at pure numbers of the share of people who bought and are buying. And then again, data is always based off history. So we've got to think of in the future, if we know that 63% of the mortgaged homes today start with a 2 or a 3 for their interest rate, okay, a 2 or 3, guys, and 80% of the mortgaged homes have an interest rate of less than 5, then we're seeing an interest rate lock scenario where people are really starting to question, I don't know, I mean, should I sell my home and get rid of the 3% rate to get a 7% interest rate right now? I know you guys know this and you're already feeling it, but this type of information could be something that you make your own video on and share with your real estate partners, or perhaps start going to the broker owners or team leads and ask to do presentations for their entire agent teams, because this is a shift that they need to start understanding. And it is the younger loan officers and younger real estate agents that are really taking market share right now. This is the average age of homebuyer per age group. So you can see the median age was 36 in this older millennial. Again, the highest percentage of people who were buying. Usually they're married. There is a segment of unmarried, but we know that it's a married couple and they're going to be from like 33 to 38 from an avatar. They are still typically Caucasian. So hopefully we start closing in on that gap. And I do think that should be a focus just from some of the research that I've been doing with the multi-generational and racial reports and trends coming ahead of what to focus on. More to that later. Again, this shows you just first-time homebuyers and as a percentage in the age group. The 23 to 31 had the largest percentage of first-time homebuyers of the total that were buying. It was their first time, which isn't super surprising. How many people have owned a home and they're already selling for age 30? When you just think from qualifying purposes or even having a down payment saved, which is what most people struggle with. This number to me wasn't as shocking. As you get to the older ones, this age group, 10% of them were still first-time homebuyers, which means we have some work to do. My friends, we need to be louder in our messaging to start helping these people. Can you just imagine how much wealth was delayed by waiting till 57, shoot, maybe 60 years old to buy your first home, and what kind of opportunities that they missed out on? So this kind of stuff fires me up and excites me that we need to be louder and up the volume on our content game. Okay, so this was very interesting. The first step taken during the home buying process. So even though there is this generational shift going on, doesn't necessarily mean consumer direct is the best answer. In fact, 15% of the homes bought last year were from consumer direct. 15. Unfortunately, whether we like it or not, most of the business is coming from the real estate agent. We may need to cast a wider net, and a lot of the top producers that were even on stage at the Modern Mortgage Summit, I had ran an MMI report to look at their numbers. Most of their top sources, they only had like a handful of real estate, and I'm talking like 2 to 3 to maybe 4 that were sending them like 1 or 2 closings a month, guys. The rest of all their closings were like onesie twosies from different real estate agents. It's time to start thinking outside of just our backyard. If you're licensed in other states, if you're able to get licensed in other states, if you're in Texas, which is a humongous state, it may be casting wider nets and looking in other pockets where you may be able to get maybe one closing the whole year from an agent, but you get enough of those that add up. That's what I'm seeing as a trend with a lot of the top producers that were even on stage at the summit. Information sources used in the home search. Obviously, this shows you with all the different age groups, started with a real estate agent or a mobile search or an open house. So this to me wasn't shocking. Again, this is why we're still going to have to love up on real estate agents, Love them or not. Okay, and then I wanted to go over just some fun facts on if we know that the buyers of the future and right now are the millennials and Gen Zs, then what are we doing to accommodate our business practices to make sure that we are adapting and pivoting so that we can keep that brand lock-in? So I wanted to go over the top 10 millennial versus Gen Z, just how they compare and how they differ. So number one, attention span. Ladies and gentlemen, it says Gen Z, they process information faster than any other generation, which is there good and bad to that? We'll see. So that's including millennials. So they live in a high-tech world with constant updates and have grown up with access to apps such as Vine and Snapchat, where their attention span is likely lower than that of millennials. However, item number two, so remember, this is 10 ways that they compare and differ. So the first one is attention span. The second one is multitasking. A short attention span is not always a drawback. And what Generation Z lacks in focus, they actually make up in their multitasking capabilities. Gen Z can work on a school assignment. Those of you who have kids, you guys have witnessed this, or maybe it's you. They can work on a school assignment on their computer and do research on a tablet, all while taking notes at the same time. Even in the evening, you may see them streaming like Netflix or Hulu, and they're also chatting with a friend on their cell phone. So the point is their brains, because they were kind of emerged into this digital era, they can process things really quickly. And I know we technically can't multitask, but they can do multiple things at once, and they just do it better than any other demographics. Again, number one, attention span. Number two, multitasking. Number three, this one was kind of shocking to me. Independent versus collaborative. So which do you think? Do you think Gen Zs prefer to be more independent or collaborative? So 71% of Gen Z say that they live by the phrase, if you want something done right, then you're going to have to do it yourself. And they tend to be more competitive and will adopt a do it yourself mindset in the personal or even professional workspaces. So yes, Gen Z typically likes to work in their own workspace, but millennials, we like to be more collaborative. We want to work with and team up with our colleagues. So that was an interesting comparison from Gen Z and millennials. Okay, number four, the digital pioneers. 40% of Gen Z say that reliable Wi-Fi, guys, listen to this. 40% say that reliable Wi-Fi is more important than reliable bathrooms. Crazy, right? I mean, if you think about it, what's the first thing, like what's a non-negotiable if you were going to be dropped off in an island somewhere and you were given the option between like toilet paper or Wi-Fi? So that wasn't too shocking. According to Pew Research, only 14% of US adults had access to the internet in 1995. So not shocking there. That was a long time ago. But by 2014, 87% had access. Because of that, because of this, the way that millennials and Gen Zs are being brought into the world, how is that impacting their way that they consume or how they choose services and products? So millennials saw firsthand how social media really revolutionized, and I mean not just change, like revolutionize the way we communicate. And we're the pioneers in the digital age because millennials were the ones who witnessed the birth of smartphones and instant messaging and just the internet search capability. So we were exposed to that from the birth of it all. And Gen Z, they were born into the tech immersed society and have a different perspective than, say, the millennials do, because we were a part of that process. Okay, so number five, face-to-face or digital chat. What do you think? Which one do you think Gen Z prefers? The face-to-face or the digital chat? Okay, so 74% of Gen Z say they prefer to communicate face-to-face in the workplace. Gen Z prefers a more personalized approach because they have been immersed into this high-tech world that they actually create that human personalized approach. So be careful on how much you automate in your mortgage practice. Some of those voice drops that you guys are doing or automated text or the automated marketing that goes out, you may want to pull that back a little bit and see where do you need to have a task now go to a human being to pick up the phone and have a more personalized conversation, or at least a more personalized video that goes out to them. They do not want to feel like they are on a conveyor belt at all, because remember, that's kind of what they've been born into. So they crave the personalization. They crave to be seen more than anything. Okay, number six, optimistic vision. So a survey conducted by Lincoln Financial Group tells us that Gen Z are far more optimistic than the millennials. So 64% of Gen Z have started researching or talking to others about their financial future by age 13. It's crazy, by age 13. So that means we're doing something right. We're starting to pique their interest in the fact that they are starting these conversations, which is even more reason why you need to be on the social media apps where they are consuming, because they are interested in learning about how to be successful. And they're realizing there is no limitation. I mean, there's 11-year-olds who are making millions streaming on Twitch, playing video games. Yes, I told my kids they are underperforming. Like, come on, y'all should be streaming live on Twitch, playing the video games that you guys love to play. Like, just create an audience, I guess. It's crazy. Okay, and after starting these conversations, 95% of those Gen Z who make financial plans, they just feel more optimistic about their future in general. And we know this. We know that financial stress can sometimes just cloud our perspective. And the more of a plan that you have and you start earlier, obviously that can create just a little bit more sense of calm. So why not start earlier? Okay, number 7. This is my favorite: convenience over brands. Accenture research tells us that Gen Z love tech-driven, fast shopping experiences like 1-hour delivery, activated shopping, and in-store kiosk. Brands are less important, and they'll happily switch retailers who are better at providing these services. So guys, I want y'all to check right now. If you have old and dusty landing pages, websites that take forever to load, guess what? That person's going to bounce on and bounce off. This is why I've been stressing to you all to integrate the link tree. A link tree is just a micro website that makes it very easy to click and get exactly what I want, where there's no fluff. These younger demographics, they don't want the fluff, that you've got to remove all the friction. What I mean by fluff is when you go to a website, it's like everybody's website is positioned a different way. Where do I find the apply now button? Where do I find the story or the reviews? And it's all different. But if you use a free Linktree account, which is just linktree.com, guys, I have it in these videos. It makes it simple, quick, modern. There's no fancy videos that are going to delay the load time. You cannot risk having a slow digital experience for these consumers. So you need to look at that. How is your process with how people apply? How easy is it for them to upload their documents? Is it easy or is it not? You've got to take kind of a behind the scenes look that maybe the way that we've always done things doesn't mean that that's how it should continue to be done, with remembering a touch of personalization, customization, because we don't want them to feel like they're on a conveyor belt. Okay, they see shopping as a social experience. They like to consult friends and get opinions on products. They can be unforgiving when leaving reviews for retailers and are also twice as likely to consult YouTube for millennials before making a purchase. Please look at me right now and make a commitment. If you haven't set up your YouTube channel yet, let us know. Schedule a support call. We actually set these up for clients, so there is a fee associated, but this is a must. It's no longer I'll get to it in second quarter. You need a YouTube channel, guys. You've got to make a commitment. I even have a YouTube starter list of the most frequently asked questions that all of you should have up on YouTube as a 911, because that's where people are going. They want to learn, and Google owns YouTube. So make that. If you don't have a YouTube channel, that needs to be a high priority. Okay, number 8, different ways of learning. So 75% of Gen Z say there are other ways of getting a good education other than the traditional route of going to college, according to Sparks and Honey research. It's kind of like what we talked about earlier. Gen Z has the beauty of hindsight on their side to see how things panned out for their counterparts. Many millennials have been left with the large student loan debts and left questioning whether it was worth it when 44% of the recent grads employed are in jobs that don't even require a degree. I think we're going to see more and more of that. I think also Gary Vee, who promotes you don't necessarily need to go to college to get experience, and which one is actually worth more. I don't think that one was as shocking for me. Now, this one is. So number 9 is tolerance. Millennials tend to be more tolerant than Gen Z, as they have generally encountered more situations in life where things have the potential of going wrong. So they have the experience of how do we then overcome that? Because remember, they're 25 to like 42, I think it was. So they've had more life experience. But Gen Z, it's all about getting the job done. And problems for them mean that they go and they look elsewhere. Example, if Gen Z is experiencing a technical hitch when making an online purchase, it's unlikely that they'll visit that store again, whereas millennials will be more lenient and give the store a second chance. That's what I mean by those load times. How easy is it for people to consume and contact you. That's also why when we're going over your Instagram accounts, I've told everyone you need to have highlight. Your highlights are the new modern way of what a website typically would have different landing pages. The highlights section in your Instagram account makes it more point and click where someone can get lost in that playlist. So if you had all first-time homebuyer tips in one highlight, I can immediately go there and I don't have to scroll through like 100 feet of posts to find all the things that only I want to see. Again, they want little fluff, no friction, high tech, high touch, and personalization. Not difficult at all, right? Okay, and last but not least, number 10 is social influencers are today's celebrities. Gen Z are more likely to be browsing YouTube than sitting in a movie theater. In fact, you ask a Gen Z to name a celebrity, they're probably naming someone off of TikTok. As crazy as that may sound, they don't watch the Oscars. They don't know, unless they're like a professional athlete, they probably don't know who these, the new celebrities are, those that you see on TikTok. And guys, shared this before. I'd gone to, I think it was Cole Swindell, the concert. It was at Billy Bob's in Texas, Fort Worth. And no, I'm from North Dallas area, which Dallas is very different than Fort Worth. But one of the girls that came on right before Cole Swindell came on, she was discovered because of TikTok. She was working a job, but she loved playing the guitar and she loved to sing. And she then got discovered and now she's a singer and songwriter. So it's crazy how people can be found because of things like TikTok. 63% say they prefer to see real people than celebrities in their ads. So the days of paying for maybe not just Shaquille O'Neal, but they don't really relate to that. That's why at a time when it's never been easier to have a personal brand, because you just have to be you. And even if you're in a ball cap with lint all over it and a sweatshirt and a ponytail, it's okay. They want to feel like that they're talking to a human, an imperfect, flawed human who's just like they are. Because when you show up authentically, they feel like they can trust you. The worst thing that could happen is if everywhere on your social media you're wearing a 3-piece suit, but yet they come and they actually meet you, say at closing, and you're nothing like what your social media shows, then now they question integrity. They question if they can trust you. So I hope this was helpful. These are my 10 big takeaways for what the shift is going on. And hopefully I'm not overwhelming any of you, but I do think this is a great presentation that you guys could all take and go set up with maybe a title company and fill a room full of real estate agents and go over some of these statistics. And maybe with your closest partners, you look at how are you guys doing business together today? Because it's a partnership. Where are there friction points? Like, where do we need to think differently of how we could make this an easier process, both digitally and customizing it so that people feel uniquely seen and uniquely heard? So that is it. It is March 17th, 2023, St. Patty's Day. Y'all go drink your green beer. And as always, y'all rock out your weekend and don't forget to print out your battle plan and be ready for Monday for your media time. All right, y'all take care.